Hello, everyone. Welcome in to my YouTube channel. My name is Jake Asman. Great to be here with you talking some Jets. Today's guest to cover everything going on with the team. You read him at jetsxfactor.com. You listen to him on the Cool Your Jets podcast. He, of course, is the great Michael Nania, and he joins us right now here on the show. Michael, so many people requested you to come on, talk Jets with me, so I'm glad we could make it happen. How you doing, my friend?
Thanks a lot for having me. I don't think anyone actually wants me on. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, between you and Robbie, I mean, we had a ton of requests from the guys over at Jets X Factor, so I'm glad we can make this happen. Let's kind of start with you, though, before we talk Jets. I mean, you're just 20 years old. You're the co-owner of this site that really breaks into the details of the New York Jets. How did you start jetsxfactor.com and give everyone an idea, maybe more about your background?
Yeah, well, I was writing for Robbie at elitesportsnewyork.com throughout for a couple of years, I think in 2018 and 2019, covering the Jets. And then we just kind of hatched this idea to kind of start our own site where we sort of just give a much deeper and more in-depth look at the team than I think you really can get anywhere else, both through what I do with the analytics, what Robbie does with the film, and then also having Joe Blewett, who is by far the best Jets film analyst out there. Really just getting the best of the best in terms of all the different ways that you can analyze football and bringing it all into one place in terms of having a Jets-centric outlet. So for my numbers, just like the rankings that I put together and just looking at the strengths and weaknesses of players in a very specific way, and then doing the same thing from a film perspective, both with Robbie and Joe. And we have so many other great film analysts now, too, who I think compare really favorably to everything else out there. I think we've definitely kind of established ourselves as a really great place to go to really learn the specifics about what every player offers, what the schemes are like, what the coaches bring to the table in terms of their X's and O's. I'm really proud of what we've been able to put together.
jetsxfactor.com, for those who have never been, certainly added to your list of Jets resources because they do an excellent job. Robbie's been on the show a bunch. Michael has been on my radio show. Now he's coming on here on my YouTube show. All right, Michael, so let's talk Jets. Before we do that, though, I do want to welcome anyone that's new to the channel. Please subscribe below. Continue to help me grow here on YouTube. If you follow me on Twitter as well and DM me, I'll shoot you that link to the Zach Wilson jersey that everyone wants. You know, Michael, I've been given links to a parts unknown place for a state-of-the-art, authentic enough Zach Wilson jersey because, I don't want to have to, force fellow Jet fans to spend, $150 on a jersey. So subscribe to the channel, follow me on Twitter at Jake Asman, DM me, and I will be happy to send you that link so you can get a Becton jersey, Elijah Moore, whatever you want ahead of training camp this summer. As far as, where we're at with this Jets team, Michael, of course, end of July, training camp is going to open. Let's start big picture. What is the storyline that you are going to be closely monitoring all summer long as we get closer and closer to the regular season, week 1 against the Panthers?
Well, I think Zach Wilson is the obvious storyline that comes to mind first, but it's almost as if there isn't really a storyline to follow. He's been great. There's no quarterback controversy. He's going to start. There's no question about that. So we'll obviously be paying attention to him, but there's not a lot of intrigue there. It looks like he's doing his part, and there's not going to be too much suspense regarding that. So for me, what I think I'm going to be looking at is the offensive line. This is a group that is now talented and deep. It's got guys who fit this scheme. It's got blue chip talent in terms of 2 first-round picks by this general manager over the past couple of years. So I'm really looking at that unit, and there's a lot of competition across that group, especially in the right side. Who's going to win that right guard spot? Is Van Roten going to be playing there again? Can Cameron Clark make a play for it? Will Dan Feeney get involved? And then at right tackle, is George Fant just going to be relegated straight to the second team, or is he going to get a chance to defend his spot? Because I was a big fan of his potential in this outside zone scheme. I think it's a great fit for his athleticism. And I definitely feel like Moses could transition well to playing right guard, and that you could have a very good allocation of talent on your offensive line by putting Moses at right guard and leaving Fant at right tackle so you can maximize that scheme fit. But at the same time, I realize Moses probably didn't come here to do that, to move inside to right guard after starting every game at right tackle over the past 6 seasons and playing really well for the most part That's not likely, but I think that would be the best way to allocate the talent. Joe Blewett has kind of talked about it too. He has the same stance, but it will be interesting to see what happens because there's a lot of depth and competition, and it's a group that has the potential to be the Jets' first, at least average offensive line in quite a while, which would be a huge thing to have for the development of a young quarterback.
Staying with the offensive line, Morgan Moses, how do you believe he fits the scheme that the Jets are going to be running on offense?
I think he is. I've sort of talked about the scheme fit a little bit with my tweets. I wrote an article comparing him and Fant. I think he's less ideal of a scheme fit than George Fant would be at right tackle, but I don't think he's not a scheme fit because you look at, first of all, you look at his combine numbers, which are from like 7 years ago. And even then he put up pretty bad drills and pretty bad times in terms of the agility drills. And his strength was mostly in size and length. And that was a long time ago. And he's actually even lighter when he put up those numbers. But when you watch his film, you don't really see those athletic deficiencies. He can really get out on the move, get to the second level, block defensive backs in space. As a lead blocker in outside zone, he can cover ground laterally. He can do those things. I don't think it's his strong suit. I think he's at his best working downhill to the inside, climbing up to linebackers, down blocking, things like that, which is why I think he could play guard well. But he definitely can play in this scheme. I don't think he's not a scheme fit. I just think Fant is an even better scheme fit because, I mean, he's a former basketball player. He's playing tight end for the Seahawks. And you watch his film last year, and the Jets didn't run a ton of wide zone. They're mostly an inside zone team. But when they did, you could really see some great blocks from Fant, just covering a lot of ground, getting in space, especially on the backside. George Fant did a lot of good stuff on outside zone, just getting around his defenders and cutting off any backside pursuit. So I think Fant's a better scheme fit, which is why I think the best way to allocate the best five-man unit would be Moses at right guard and Fant right tackle. But I don't think Moses is a bad scheme fit by any means. I think he's a lot more athletic than his numbers let on in terms of athleticism. And overall, I think he is definitely an upgrade over Fant. I'm not sure if he's a huge upgrade because I feel like in terms of the grades that are out there, Fant is pretty decently underrated by them and Moses is overrated a little bit. But I think Moses is definitely still an overall upgrade over Fant, even in this scheme.
And you can never have enough, offensive line talent.
Right.
As, the Jets have dealt with injuries at that spot for a long time. So I'm totally with you there. Now, another storyline that I think will be a major, topic of discussion, depending on how it shakes out, is Marcus Maye's contract situation. Right now, we all know he's on the franchise tag, and they have until July 15th to either sign him long term or he would have to play on the franchise tag for this season. Where are you at with Marcus Maye? If you were the Jets, would you try and sign Maye long-term, or would you rather him just play this season on the one-year franchise tag?
Yeah, I think there's a couple different ways to look at this situation. The first aspect of it is that, as a team, you have the luxury of the franchise tag afforded to you by the league, and it's a very team-friendly tool that you'd like to be able to use. You have this advantage as the Jets to where you can play out the season with Maye for 1 year. Let's see how he fits in a new defense. He's 28 years old, which is on the higher end for a safety getting his second contract. Let's see what happens. Let's just play it out for a year and revisit it next year. That there's no reason that you shouldn't want to do that. It's a very team-friendly thing. But at the same time, I think it's important to think about some of the promises that the Jets have sort of made publicly and the culture they want to try to establish. Robert Saleh came in his opening press conference and talked about wanting to get guys paid, getting players into the positions where they could be successful and earn money. And I think if you're playing hardball with Maye and kind of being cheap with him, a guy who is a very respected team leader, a captain, Jeff Ulbrich talked about it on Flight 2021, how he comes into the building and everyone's talking about Marcus Maye and how great of a leader he is. I think playing hardball with a guy like that, even though he wasn't drafted by this regime, kind of doesn't really go with some of the things that they are trying to establish right now. So I think for that reason, that's a very important reason to try to extend him and get something done and just establish to the team, you play well, you play your part in the locker room, you're going to get paid, you're going to get rewarded. So I think that aspect of it is important. And then from an on-field standpoint, he's a great player. He's been very consistent over the past 3 seasons, has never been a big-time playmaker in terms of picks, but Last year, he had 11 pass deflections, which is very close to the top of the league among safeties. He's a fundamentally sound player who doesn't make the big mistakes. And that's the biggest thing with safeties. If they can make big plays, that's awesome. But you just don't want to see them giving up big plays. We've seen Jets teams in the past that had safeties who, you saw the name of the back of their jersey way too much during the season because they were always chasing guys to the end zone. And Marcus Maye is very rarely doing that. And that's where I think he adds a lot of value. So I think he's worth getting paid a deal in the range of guys like Justin Simmons, Budda Baker, some of these recent contracts. It would be expensive. It'd be in that 14, 15 million range per year. But I think from a Jets perspective, it's important to think about some of the values that you've established and what it would mean if you play hardball with May versus if you extend him and give him the money that he's definitely earned.
Totally agree. And after they let Robbie Anderson walk in free agency last year, you obviously trade Sam Darnold, you're trading away Jamal Adams, all for different reasons, but you want to keep some of your own that have played well, especially as you mentioned, Robert Saleh at his press conference when he's being introduced is talking about how he wants guys to play well on Sundays so he can help them get paid. Well, May has been a good soldier, good leader, never thrown anyone under the bus while being on some bad teams the last couple of years. I think you want to reward that guy with a contract so it's not maybe a distraction, entering the season with a brand new coach who's trying to establish, a brand new culture, inside the organization. So I'm with you there. And then also, Michael, you signed May long-term. Who knows what happens with Seattle and Jamal Adams dealing with contract issues. It's a nice little dig at the Jamal Adams side of things. If you could sign May long-term, and Adams wanted a new contract from the Jets, didn't get it, so he cried like a baby and forced a trade out to Seattle. Jets fleeced Seattle in the deal, and they end up signing the safety they kept all along. I think that'd be a good look for the Jets if they could get it done.
Yeah, poetic justice, for sure. That would be awesome.
So, Michael, let's talk about Zach Wilson now, because obviously, you can't talk Jets and not talk about this rookie quarterback second overall. I want to go back to your initial film study of Wilson, going through, some of the analytical numbers that you guys do at Jets X Factor. Now that you have had months to accept the fact he's the Jets quarterback, he's the guy we all know Wilson will be opposite Sam Darnold opening day. What is it about Zach Wilson's skill set that makes you the most excited about what he could potentially bring to this offense?
I think for me, the biggest thing with Zach Wilson is that I think like you said, I think he's a good fit in this offense. I think the things he does well complements, and this is another thing that the Jets mentioned. I believe it was Michael Flores said it, or actually Robert Saleh said this, that on his film, you see him making throws that they're going to be asking him to make. I think in this offense, a lot of the things he does well, his ball placement, and this is something that Robbie talked about from seeing him at practice, his ability to sort of vary his velocity. He could put heat on the ball if he needs to throw a laser and stick it in there. But he could also take, some velocity off of it so it has enough touch to loft in there and drop in at the perfect time. So those are a couple things that I think are going to fit on some of the throws he'll be making in this offense, whether it's crossing routes, a lot of stuff over the middle that will be, promoting yards after the catch, kind of like the Niners did for their receivers. And also Sam Sternick, who does some film breakdowns for us at Jets X Factor, he had posted this really awesome clip comparing the throw that Wilson made at his pro day, where he rolled out, kind of threw it off his back foot to a receiver breaking deep in the opposite direction, is something that's in the Niners playbook. And we've seen Aaron Rodgers make that throw for the Packers with Matt LaFleur. And we saw Jimmy Garoppolo make that throw a few times with the Niners under Mike LaFleur's passing game over the past few years. So it's applicable stuff. I think what he does is NFL applicable because there were a lot of tight window throws on his tape. Yeah, the competition wasn't great, but throwing into a tight window is throwing into a tight window. I think no matter what uniform you're wearing or the other guy's wearing, if you're fitting it into a tight window, you're fitting it into a tight window. So on an overall level, I feel like the things he does are very NFL applicable. The quickness of his release, his accuracy into tight windows, his touch, his anticipation, his ability to begin his windup before receivers make their break, before the window's actually there, to throw it into the window before it opens. NFL applicable stuff, but also a lot of the concepts that he was excelling with, I think match up with what the Jets are going to be running. So going into the draft, I was definitely higher on Justin Fields than I think the NFL ended up being on him. I was pretty close with them. I like Justin Fields a lot. between Wilson and Fields. But ultimately, I think for the Jets' needs schematically, I think Wilson makes a lot of sense. And so far, it does look like comparing the talk around both guys in their respective training camps that Wilson does have an edge over him and probably Trey Lance as well. So it does seem like Wilson is the guy that made the most sense for them.
This is the Jake Asman Show. My name is Jake Asman. He's Michael Nania. You could, of course, find his work at jetsxfactor.com and listen to his podcast, the Cool Your Jets podcast. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe below. It goes a long way to helping my channel continue to grow. Please like this video as well. So, Michael, as far as expectations now then for Zach Wilson, statistically speaking, what do you expect from him during his rookie season?
Yeah, it's tough to project. I think it really comes down to how the rest of the team supports him. If this offensive line is, average to good, somewhere in that range, then he could have a really solid rookie season. But if he has to deal with a bunch of obstacles in terms of injuries in the O-line, bad protection, injuries at receiver, then, maybe the expectation shouldn't be as high. But the biggest thing for me whenever thinking about rookie production at quarterback is that I think you need to keep expectations as low as possible because for the most part, rookie quarterbacks don't play well. It's really hard. It's very rare you see a rookie quarterback who's a good and above average NFL starter. Justin Herbert did it last year, but he had the most productive rookie season of all time, and he still probably wasn't even a top 10 quarterback last season. So it's really hard for rookie quarterbacks to play well. And a lot of times you see rookie quarterbacks with very bad seasons go on to have great careers. Josh Allen did it, Carson Wentz, and Jared Goff. Jared Goff isn't good now, but he did make it to a Super Bowl, have some productive years. It takes a long time. You got to be patient with these guys. We saw a little wave over in recent history with guys coming onto the scene really quickly that raised our expectations a little bit, but it's still a position you got to be patient with. So obviously you don't want him to be awful. You don't want to watch that. It's not promising, but I think no matter a guy can struggle as a rookie and it's not going to change his future outlook that much as long as he shows you promise and has a few games throughout the season, moments throughout the season where he shows you tangible potential. But I do think Wilson has a chance to have an above average rookie season, above average for a rookie. I think he could hit 20 touchdowns, keep the picks lower than 12, maybe in that 10 range. So I could see 20 touchdown, 10 pick sort of rookie season for him. But we'll see what happens. I think the biggest thing is to keep in mind is don't have your expectations too high. No matter how much he struggles, he can still turn it around. He's only a rookie. Most rookies struggle a lot. So just that's important to remember.
I actually placed a bet on Zach Wilson at plus 850 to win Rookie of the Year. I thought, you know what? Those are pretty good odds. I think the Jets offense is going to be built towards him maybe having some really good statistics as a rookie. So going off of that, Michael, as far as the situation that Wilson's coming into, we all know for 3 years, Sam Darnold was not put in the best situation to have long-term success. Sam might not be any good. We will find out going forward, but we still don't definitively know what Sam Darnold is because they gave him Todd Bowles, Adam Gase, bad offensive line, bad weapons. Every Jet fan watching this knows. So as far as Wilson's situation, give me your take on just how much better it is, obviously, than Darnold's situation, and specifically the line and receivers, how they fit what Wilson can bring to this offense.
Yeah, I think it's substantially better. And the depth is the biggest thing, I think. When you look at the wide receiver position, they go 6 deep with guys who are, solid options. Braxton Berrios is probably your 6th best receiver right now. Keelan Cole 5th, Jamison Crowder 4th, or at least in terms of how the depth chart might line up. Even Mims could be your 4th or 5th guy if it plays out that way. So the depth is a lot better. You're not going to see games where, the Jets are missing 1 receiver, 2 receivers, even 3 receivers, and have to throw out Andre Roberts, Sharon Peake, Rashard Matthews.
Chris Hogan. Chris Hogan started opening day last year. He's playing lacrosse right now, Michael.
Yeah, so the depth was so bad. Guys, you lose 1 or 2 guys, and you're down to playing lacrosse players, punt returners, guys who aren't even in the NFL right now. But now you could lose 3 receivers, and you could still put Braxton Berrios, Corey Davis, and Elijah Moore on the field. And That's pretty good for having that many players out. And it's really important to have that because guys are going to get hurt. It happens to every team every year. You never throw out, your best 22 every single game every week. So you need to have backups who can help you at least stay afloat when guys get hurt. Your backups are always going to be worse to some extent. That's why they're backups, and the starters are starters. But you want the drop-off to be as small as possible. When your drop-off is the 2018 Bears game and you're throwing out a team of guys who are all not even in the league 2 years later, except Roberts because he's a punt returner, you're not going to be able to do anything in that situation. But if you can lose some starters and still put out Berrios, who's okay, and, still have, other starting caliber players throughout there, you're going to be okay no matter what happens. And I think that's what's important. Then on the offensive line, it's just markedly better. Becton is better than Beachum. Vera Tucker is better than Carpenter. McGovern is much better. Even though McGovern struggled last year, much better than Jonathan Harrison, Spencer Long. At right guard, we'll see what happens there. They're not haven't proven they're better than Brian Winters at that spot yet, I don't think. And then Morgan Moses or George Fant, I think, is better than Brandon Shell. So they're substantially better on the O-line. The wide receiver depth is better. Tight end isn't necessarily better right now, although I think the blocking could be better with Tyler Kroft and Wesco in there than Darnold's rookie season. And then at running back, I think they have some potential. Obviously, Darnold had Le'Veon Bell in 2019 and a little bit of last year, but that didn't turn out well at all. And I think this running back group has the potential to, all these guys combined, I think you have a little bit of everything you need. You have some receiving ability with Coleman, home run ability with Carter. Ty Johnson has patience and vision and is good, consistent chunk gainer who's a good fit in a wide zone scheme. P. Ryan brings a little bit of power. I like Josh Adams. We'll see if he makes the team. He's pretty elusive, a good breaker, tackle breaker. Carter also can pass block, so he's good on third down. So I think this running back group has all the skills you want, just combined between all these guys. Whereas the past few years, I feel like it was, first of all, last year was terrible. Outside of Bell, you had Frank Gore carrying most of the carries. That's obviously bad. And then when Bell was here, as talented as he was coming in, now we know that, maybe it wasn't just all offensive line. Maybe he did lose some gas because it was just Bell. There wasn't a lot of creativity or mixing it up. Now I feel like this group offers a lot of ability to mix and match and do creative things and keep guys fresh and rotate guys in and out throughout the game. So I think running back has been upgraded as well compared to Darnold's tenure. So overall, Zach Wilson is definitely supported much better than Darnold was.
You look at the wide receiver room, a guy that I think has a chance to really break out in this offense is Denzel Mims. I love the pick when they made it last year. He dealt with injuries and dealt with the fact that, his coach was Adam Gase, who never knew how to utilize his skill set. Do you think Denzel Mims could take a massive step forward and be a focal part of the 2021 Jets offense?
I think that's going to be one of the biggest questions to watch throughout this offseason and then into the early part of the season, because I think Mims definitely has the talent to be that type of player. You look at his size, his blend of size and athleticism, his ball skills, and the versatile amount of things he can do. He just looks the part. You look at Denzel Mims and you see a guy who definitely reminds you of some of those top receivers in the league, those number one guys. But there are a lot of mouths to feed in this wide receiver room. Elijah Moore is here, and he looks like he could be the top option right away. Corey Davis is in here on a big deal after a great season. Crowder is sticking around. Keelan Cole is playing well in camp. So I feel like it's going to be tough for him to really establish himself as that with so many targets going around. But what I think he can do is be like a Mike Williams sort of player. Like for him with the Chargers, he's a highly drafted player, and he sort of has a similar skill set in terms of size, athleticism, being able to make contested catches. But, with Keenan Allen there, they'd Hunter Henry there. Has never really established himself as their go-to guy, but he's been a big part of their offense, and he's made plays when they've targeted him. Mike Williams has had a 1,000-yard season. I believe he had a 10-touchdown season a couple years ago, and he's consistently near the top of the league in terms of yards per target and yards per reception. I think that's what Mims can be. For now, down the line, if more opportunities open up in a few years, there aren't as many, it isn't as stacked of a wide receiver room, he could become that type of player. Look at Devontae Adams. It took him a long time after being a second-round pick to really establish himself as the go-to guy. But for now, in this room, I feel like Mims can be your explosive playmaker, a guy who who's probably going to run the most go routes on the team down the sideline, who should see more goal line. He only saw one fade route in the end zone last season, which is pretty criminal. I think you got to do more than that. I think he'll see more of those. I think he'll be your top vertical threat. I think that's what he's going to be for this team this year. Not going to see a ton of targets just because there's so many to go around. But I think if he develops as we hope, he can be that guy who wins jump balls at a high rate, gets those touchdowns in the end zone at a high rate, and makes a few deep catches throughout the season. And also, I think an important thing with Mims is that regarding his scheme fit, I think he's a better scheme fit than a lot of people realize, because one of the things he does best is when you get him the ball in stride over the middle of the field, whether it's on a crossing route or a slant or a dig or something like that, when he catches the ball in stride over the middle, he's really good after the catch. That's where you see his 4.38 speed show up. It's not really on the vertical routes. You're not going to throw him a design screen in the backfield behind the line of scrimmage. But when you get him the ball in stride, he can really outrun people, and he has a knack for elusiveness. We saw it multiple times last season where he'll catch the ball in stride over the middle, throw on the brakes to break a tackle, and continue and get 10, 15 more yards than he should have. So I think that makes him a good fit in this offense as well. You can draw up some touches for him over the middle, and he's going to do more damage with those passes than a lot of other receivers can do. So I think that's the overall synopsis for Mims. I don't think he's going to have that opportunity to really be that go-to guy this season. He could. It absolutely could happen. But looking at how many mouths there are to feed, I think it's most realistic to expect he'll kind of have maybe 5 targets a game, so about 80 throughout the season. But then you hope that with those, he can be highly efficient, get a good number of touchdowns, and 20-plus yard gains throughout the season.
Michael, how about the Jets tight end situation here? Can Chris Herndon finally break out? I feel like we've asked this question now for the 3rd year in a row since he had a nice end to his 2018 rookie season with Sam Darnold throwing him the ball. Do you have any hope for Chris Herndon still in 2021?
Yeah, I was such a big fan after 2018. I wanted to stay optimistic. Well, I did going into last season because there was no reason not to. He only played 1 game the previous year, but I'm going to pump the brakes a little bit this year. So sorry, Robert Saleh. I'm going to go all brakes, no gas here. But after last season, I think the potential is still there. You can't rule it out because physically he has the talent. We've seen the ball skills. There are a lot of great catches on his tape, but it's hard to ignore what he did last year with 5 drops, 2 fumbles. Most of those were very egregious. So those are the type of things that aren't really coaching related. Like people talk about a post-Gase breakout. I don't think Adam Gase had to do with him dropping the ball or fumbling it. So it's the type of thing that you have to improve individually. And early camp returns or OTA and mini camp returns haven't been too positive for him either. There were some drops out there that were reported. So I'm going to pump the brakes a little bit, but I'm not going to rule out the potential of him breaking out, especially because of how tight ends were valued in San Francisco. I think he'll definitely have that chance to do so, but I'm just going to wait and see it. I want to see it before I really bank on anything. But I think one thing he does offer for sure is pass blocking. He had the most pass blocking reps of any tight end last year in the league, and he did a good job with those. So that is one thing he brings to the table. Not super exciting, but it is valuable. But so I won't rule out a breakout for him. He has the talent, but after how really bad he looked last season, even though he finished fairly strong, it was only 3 games, and it wasn't an amazing finish of the season. So I'm not going to rule it out. I think his rookie season was fantastic, especially for a rookie. It's really one of the best rookie tight end seasons in recent memory. So can't write that off, but I'm just going to wait and see first after last season.
Michael, let's change gears and talk about the defensive side of the ball now. We've spent a lot of time going through the new additions on offense and some of the pieces that are going to try and help Zach Wilson have success as a rookie. But defensively now, you look at what the Jets did in free agency. Ultra aggressive, trying to improve the defensive front. They obviously are expecting to get CJ Mosley back at linebacker. Give me your thoughts on fair expectations for Robert Saleh's 2021 New York Jets defense.
Yeah, I think this group has legitimately a lot of potential, and it all starts with that pass rush. I look at the Niners in 2019, the best unit that Saleh had over his 4 years there, and it was all built around being able to have a pass rush that could create a lot of pressure without having to blitz. So then you could allocate more reinforcements and coverage. And this group has the potential to do that with how many great pass rushers they have on that defensive line. Quinton Williams was elite last year. John Franklin Myers, as a pass rusher, was elite last year. Carl Lawson is elite. Sheldon Rankins is a very good pass rusher. Vinny Curry, very good situational pass rusher. This is a lot. It feels like it's been a while since the Jets even had two really good pass rushers. You could go into a season saying, those two guys are really good pass rushers. Now I think they have five, which is crazy. So they've done a great job building up that defensive line from a pass rushing perspective. And I think it's all going to be built around that, how far this unit goes. If that pass rush stalls, then this unit has question marks, and those cornerbacks, that young quarterback group is not going to get a lot of help. They're going to have a lot of pressure on them, and they're going to struggle. The same thing for the young linebackers. So if the pass rush isn't there, they could struggle. But if the pass rush is really good, then I think the ceiling just exponentially increases. You'll have more opportunities for Mosley to make plays, for Marcus Maye to make plays. And then the young quarterbacks, their transition is going to be, and the linebackers, is going to be a lot easier because the ball's going to be coming out a lot quicker and they won't have to cover for as long. So it all starts with that pass rush. If that unit is elite, then I think this can be a very good defense.
Are you surprised that the Jets have not signed another veteran cornerback to improve that unit?
Yeah, I think slightly, but I guess it makes sense from the Jets' perspective. If you're the Jets, if you're Robert Saleh and you're Jeff Ulbrich, and you look at this defensive coaching staff with guys like Marquand Manuel, Tony Oden, Ricky Manning, they have some guys in that defensive backfield coaching staff who have done really good things in the past with guys like, in the case of Tony Oden last year, did great stuff with Jason Verrett in San Francisco. He's also worked with Xavier Howard, Darius Slay. They have a good coaching staff on that defensive backfield. And from their perspective, if you're confident that your pass rush is going to be good enough to take pressure off your back end, you could drop more guys back because you don't have to blitz. You're not going to have to cover for very long because the pass rush is going to get there quickly and consistently. So you have confidence in these things, then you definitely feel it. You would be justified to feel like that you can develop those guys out there because you have so many things benefiting their growth. So I think it's fair from their perspective that they think they can develop these guys. And I think it's why that they spent so many draft picks on the position, drafting 3 cornerbacks, because they feel like they just want to take throws at the dartboard. I think they want multiple clay to work with because they feel like they do have a good chance to develop talent there. I think the same goes for linebacker with Robert Saleh and Jeff Ulbrich being great linebacker coaches themselves, developing Fred Warner, Deion Jones, and a couple of other guys as well, KJ Wright and Bobby Wagner in Saleh's case as an assistant in Seattle. I think it's the same thing there. They feel like they can develop those guys. They feel like CJ Mosley is there to help them develop. Again, the pass rush takes pressure off of them. So I think that's what they see. You can't fix everything in one offseason. This team had a lot of holes. So they look at the roster and they feel like, which positions do we have the best chance to develop without adding high-end talent? And I think they looked at their coaching staff and themselves and also the elite positions on their team. And they saw the defensive line can help the rest of the defense. And our coaching experience is strongest in the defensive backfield and linebacker. So these are the positions that we'll go light at, address in the future if we need to. But for now, we feel like those are the positions we could do best with without making premium investments. So I feel like that's their approach. But at the same time, it's risky to run young corners out there. And there are a couple good options with Sherman and Nelson still there. But at the same time, maybe those guys don't want to play here. Maybe they want more from a contract perspective than the Jets are willing to give them. We don't know. But I think that's what it boils down to. The Jets feel good about being able to develop talent at those spots.
CJ Mosley, you mentioned him. Are we getting the 2019 week 1 first 3 quarters against the Bills CJ Mosley in 2021? What type of CJ Mosley should the Jet fan expect to see this season?
Yeah, I feel like he has a good chance of being the same player he was, because I feel like his game is not athleticism based. It's always been about IQ, awareness, film study, just being in the right place at the right time. That's what Mosley does well. He's never really been a guy who is a sideline to sideline playmaker or a ridiculous blitzer. It's always just been a guy who knows where he needs to be when he needs to be there and just does it. He shuts down your coverage. He shuts down your concepts and coverage because he just knows that he's got to drop a few steps to cut off that crossing route behind him. He knows he's got to get underneath the rub so he can shut down the running back coming out of the backfield. These are things that don't require that much athleticism, but make a big impact on the game, and he does them really well. And then just in the run game, he's never been much of a destroyer, but he's just a guy who fills his gap and goes where he needs to go. So I think he's a really good chance to continue being the same type of player, because the things he does well aren't things that should decline with age. So I definitely think he's going to have another very good season and just have a positive impact on the whole unit in terms of developing the young linebackers they have, getting everybody in the right spot defensively, and also just on an individual level, being one of the best producing linebackers in the league, especially in coverage. I feel like he's underrated there. He's not a guy who's going to go outside and go one-on-one with Travis Kelce, but he's a guy who in the middle of the field just does the right things and does not blow coverages. And that makes a big impact. So I feel like he has a good chance to continue playing really well.
Finally, Michael, your level of optimism entering training camp just weeks away. Where are you at on the optimism scale with the 2021 Jets?
Yeah, I feel really optimistic, but I kind of pull back a little bit because it feels like every single offseason that we're optimistic. Even when we had Adam Gase the past couple of years, I feel like we found ways to be optimistic. But I think that right there is the biggest difference. It doesn't feel like you have to find those ways to be optimistic. With Adam Gase, like when they first hired him, I was putting out all these tweets like hashtag Gase positivity, like digging up these ridiculous reasons to be positive about him. Like, oh, look, Dan Orlovsky, when he was the offensive assistant in Detroit, Dan Orlovsky had a 5-point better passer rating than the rest of his career.
Dan Orlovsky.
Oh, yeah, man. And like finding these ridiculous reasons to be positive. We're not doing that now. Now, like the reasons to be optimistic about the Jets are legitimate. It's like they got Carl Lawson. He's great. They got Corey Davis. He's great. They got Robert Saleh, the head coach that was my number one guy, and I think a lot of people's number one guy, and who you don't need to rationalize to say he's good. He coached a great defense. You watch him, and he's a great leader. They got Zach Wilson, who's a great quarterback prospect, objectively, fits the scheme really well. They filled a lot of needs. They added pass rush talent. They added receivers. They added pieces to their offensive line. And all these players who we're talking about, them adding, are just good players. It's not like, maybe they can bounce back after this injury, this down year. They just got good players, and you don't really have to make up reasons to be optimistic. Doesn't mean things are going to work out, because there are 31 other fan bases that probably feel the same way. But it feels like you have to do less mental gymnastics to feel good about the team. It feels like it's a lot more cut and dry because the reasons are a lot more real and legitimate. It doesn't really feel like that you have to kind of, make up reasons to be excited and kind of work around these things like, well, yeah, the offensive line is bad, but just wait until this guy gets in this game or this guy bounces back after this year. It's a lot easier to picture this team being successful than I think it has been in a while.
He's Michael. I'm Jake. Thanks so much for watching this YouTube sit down with Michael Nania, who, of course, is the co-owner of JetsXFactor.com. His podcast, the Cool Your Jets podcast, available now. They're breaking down all the topics we just hit on and deep dive and, just in various ways that they do it over at Jets X Factor. Michael, this was a ton of fun, man. I said it at the top. You were highly requested to come on the show. Thanks for making so much time for us here. And look, training camp just weeks away. I know it's going to be a fun season. I'm very optimistic like you.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
Everyone, thanks for watching. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe and like this video below. And have a great 4th of July weekend, everybody. America, how about that? See ya.